terrifying position to be in, and we're going to see what leads both players take out. We see it is going to be Rillaboom with Future, and instead Calyrex, the Ice Rider, of course, alongside Iron Hands. This is a nice lead here for the Calyrex player.
Yeah, it's, you know, we've already seen how much damage this Kyogre can do, or, you know, Kyogre in general can do when positioned well. And at this moment, it looks like the Kyogre is probably the fastest thing on the field for either of these two trainers. Of course, there is Fake Out available to both of them. The Rillaboom is going to be faster than the Iron Hand, so it gets to choose which target to Fake Out. If you are Thomas, you have that little bit of control over the situation.
Okay, it looks like we are going to have a switch out here, and we're going to be bringing in... Okay, Miraidon coming in for Jake here.
Yeah, just getting yourself into a position where turn 2, you can threaten a ton of damage into enemies Pokemon. As a Terastallization comes out immediately, here on turn 1, it's going to be the Rillaboom becoming a Water type, very, very strong in front of a Calyrex Ice Rider.
Yep.
Of course, turning the Wasteland weakness into increased hit resistance. Not so strong when you're looking down this
Miraidon. Yeah, that's very scary indeed. In fact, we're going to see Fake Out go into Miraidon, a properly placed move here. And Water Spout going into a Protect, but Miraidon, it should be able to take this decently. Oh, that's still a lot of damage. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the damage that we've seen Kyogres do into Miraidons today,
Obscene.
even when they're still Dragon types.
Yeah, obscene.
It's
Yeah, it's too much damage for one creature.
But, of course, the good news if you're a Miraidon player is you don't need all the HP in the world. You just need to be on the field to click your attacks. You've got an Electro Drift primed into 2 water types on the field across from you this turn. You have the potential to take your pick of a KO. As I'd love to see what you're seeing, Naeem.
I'm seeing a switch out into Grimmsnarl. Okay, Grimmsnarl is a good switch in here, but it's still going to take a ton of damage to use Volt Switch right now. And then Trick Room's coming out with Volt Switch use. We get to position perfectly alongside our Trick Room turns. Oh, this is huge. I think Grimmsnarl was a great switch in here, though, because now we can set up screens and try to prevent as much damage coming in as possible. But an Iron Hands here is going to be pretty devastating. Fake Out into Grimmsnarl can deny it, setting up anything. And then, because of the Trick Room, we'll be able to push in so much damage from Ice Rider here. This is terrifying.
And this is the position that, as a Calyrex Ice Rider player, you're always looking for. You're always looking to get on the field with speed control in front of a Pokemon that's at, 20% of its HP.
Oh, yeah.
Just guarantee the KO.
Get my plus.
The Grimmsnarl, get your boost from the Aswan, the Chilling Neigh, that boosts your attack stat whenever you take a KO on the other side. And Jake was able to Volt Switch out into the Iron Hands. You have Fake Out here.
Perfect play.
Sure, Thomas does have that Sucker Punch on Grimmsnarl. It's a way to hit the Calyrex Ice Rider super effectively for Jake, but I don't know how much that Sucker Punch is really going to do in front of a Calyrex Ice Rider that is the defensive typing great? No. But the stats are.
Yes.
And it's, you have to choose then between getting your Reflect up or getting the Sucker Punch.
It looks like they chose Reflect. I think that's a good choice here because you want to get as much damage as possible, but it doesn't matter. When you're going to get a knockout is a critical hit. Ignoring the Reflect here. How wild.
Yeah, well, I don't even know if the critical hit mattered all that much. You have the Iron Hands with the attack with the Super Core Drive and Electric Terrain. You have a Wild Charge that's boosted by the Electric Terrain as well, another 30% boost. If anything, the Kyogre lives maybe on a sliver, and we're looking at a situation where the Calyrex is able to pick up 2 KOs with Glacial Lance, get to +2. As it stands now, though, Thomas down to his final 2 Pokemon. It's going to be a Zacian hitting the field for the first time next to the Rillaboom to reset the grassy terrain. But with 3 more turns of Trick Room and a +1 Calyrex Ice Rider on the other side of the field, it is not looking like a really great position for this Zacian, barring, say some high horsepower misses.
Yeah, a high horsepower miss here would be on theme for today, actually. We've seen a lot of misses throughout the course of these rounds, but hey, anything can happen. Mons is Mons, baby. So we're going to see high horsepower come out for sure here, but there is Fake Out play that we can go for to try and deny any attacks from Iron Hands. But it looks like they're going to switch out here.
Yeah, and this is where the information game comes into play, because there is Fake Out active until Jake reveals that Furrygraph as the fourth Pokemon. Not only are you going to have the Furrygraph on the field now to block any priority moves, in this case the Fake Out especially, but becoming a pure fire type with the Terastallization of Calyrex Ice Rider, even if you miss an attack into the Zacian, it's not going to do all that much damage in return with the Steel or Fairy type movement.
Nice.
Oh, with Reflect Up too, the Zacian's able to take that attack pretty well.
He went for the Swords Dance here. How interesting.
Yeah.
But now our priority is to either stall out these Trick Room turns. We do have a few of them left. It was 2, I believe. So, okay, so you can protect here and try to get yourself on the last turn, but it's still going to be close. High horsepower can miss still. Switches out can also happen. I don't know. Maybe
At this point,
it's tough.
even if Thomas is able to stall out Trick Room, get the double protect on Zacian, let's say,
Right.
I just don't know how you're able to deal enough damage into the Calyrex Ice Rider. Sure, the Zacian's a +3, but both of its attacks are resisted by the Calyrex because it's either fire type. The Rillaboom only has grass and
There
bug
goes a miss.
moves. We
That's
do
huge.
see
That's
high
big.
horsepower miss. One
Water
hammer comes
hammer?
out into the Iron Hand's not going to be enough to pick up the KO, but plenty of damage to that slot. And Behemoth Blade now into the Calyrex Ice Rider.
That's pretty good damage. That's not bad damage.
It's not bad damage, certainly, but the fact that it's still not even a 2-hit KO at +3 attack for Zacian does make things tricky. Of course, we're staring down the final turn of Trick Room.
We could
coming up
double protect here.
So you can protect the Zacian. The Rillaboom does not have protect, the Assault Vest item. So you do just kind of have to give up the Rillaboom, I suppose. The Wild Charge plus a Glacial Lance should be more than enough to pick up that Pokemon, even with the Reflect lowering the damage output.
Yeah, it's kind of scary too, because you can't even really go for Grassy Glide. It's a fire type on this Zacian. Excuse, not Zacian. But yeah, it's going to be resistant. As you can see, it's not going to do much damage at all. And of course, the return, not going to get a knockout quite yet.
Yeah, but once again, it's exactly what you're trying to do to set up for your Calyrex Ice Rider. Get something down to its last 10 or 15 HP, and then let the Glacial Lance roll right up.
Yeah. And now we'll see another boost from Chongnay, and I think that's Curry's here.
Just about. Zacian, those of us who were playing in Sword and Shield, we remember what kind of a menace Zacian
Yes,
is.
absolutely.
It
Absolutely.
can at times be such a powerful sense of centralizing force in competitive Pokemon, competitive VGC specifically. But I just don't know if it has the juice in the tank quickly after its HP available to it to win a 1 versus 4 in this game here. It's going to pick up the first KO for Thomas's side. But at this point, Calyrex, you get to click Trick Room. Now everything on Jake's side, which was slower than the Zacian, is now going to go first. And you're in a position where you can just click your 100% accurate moves.
You know what really sealed the deal here is the terrain. All that recovery that you're getting back here, it's just making it even that much more difficult to get a knockout.
Which is so interesting because it's the terrain that Thomas set up.
Yeah.
That ends up making it just so much more difficult to deal with this Calyrex Ice Rider.
Yeah, absolutely. That's just a tough situation to deal with. We're definitely thinking about game 2 at this point. But what changes do we make here?
Yeah, I think
We have to
game
deny Trick
plan-
Room. We have to deny
exactly.
Trick Room.
You have to have some sort of counterplay to Trick Room, whether that's denying it altogether or bringing that weakness potentially on Thomas's side.
Oh,
It's something
sure.
that is slower than everything that Jake has on his team. Could be pretty disruptive, especially with your Rillaboom to change the terrain.
Yeah.
You remove the electric terrain, means you're able to put things to sleep with the Amoonguss. That's one angle you could go at. But I think we really just have to give props to Jake's game plan and his execution in that first game.
Absolutely.
We talked about how devastating the Terra Fire on the Calyrex Ice Rider was. That's usually not the case whenever you're playing a team that has a Kyogre on it.
Yeah.
So it's the ordering of those KOs. You're prioritizing knocking out the Kyogre. Then I can terastallize my Calyrex Ice Rider, become a fire type, and nothing else on the other team really deals with it all that effectively.
Yeah.
It's once you're able to manage your game plan in that way, you really just just set up those end games that there's not a ton your opponent can do. Now, Thomas has seen that strategy.
Right.
You know, he's seen how Jake approached that first game. What changes can you make with either the Pokemon selection or the game plan in game 2 to give yourself a little bit of a better chance here?
You know, props to Jake too. It was really tricky with how he set up the Trick Room in that turn too. Bringing in the Iron Hands after using Volt Switch too. Kind of like faking the opponent out like, yeah, I'm going fast. No, really, I'm going super slow. And that was a little tricky for you. But we're going to have to see how we adjust for that for Thomas here. But we also saw an adjustment here from Jake as well. But, oh, they choose a similar lead.
Okay, so it's going to be the two restricted Pokemon on Thomas's side. It's the Zacian and the Kyogre, which typically are two of the stronger Pokemon in this matchup for Thomas. But looking at the Calyrex Ice Rider and the Choice Scarf Annihilate, that, of course, is packing that final Gambit attack. Ryan Gambit, of course, will deal as much damage to the target as HP remaining on the user. The Annihilate, as you can see, a very high HP stat.
Absolutely.
Can choose to take a KO in either slot, provided it gets the slot targeting correct. You know, provided it doesn't target it into a protect. Can just trade 1-for-1 on this turn if it so chooses.
I did like the adjustment or the thought process from Thomas here because we did have the Steel type and, of course, the Water type to cover this terrestrialization with the Fire typing. But it's like you said, Fallon Gambit is going to be a huge piece in this upcoming turn. Protect here is going to be interesting. Are we going to get the double Protect just to scout out? No, we're not. So that might be a knocked out Kyogre. A fair trade. Taking out a restricted for a non-restricted is excellent play here.
Yeah, exactly. And we see the same idea as what we were talking about in game 1, where you're able to remove the Kyogre. In this case, you get Kyogre off the field turn 1 immediately in game 2. Now Trick Room is active. You limit the switching options that your opponent has. Of course, it did cost you your own Annihilate, but now you have the option to just start swinging away with your Calyrex Ice Rider with a very safe Fire-type terrestrialization at this point, and the Iron Hands, which is, as we saw in game 1, even slower than the Calyrex on Jake's side.
Rillaboom facing down this Iron Hands as well. It could go for a fake out here. I imagine we want to try and deny a fake out from our opponent, but man, this Calyrex is just looking scary. It's scarier by the second. I don't know what I would go for here. Especially since Zacian just doesn't have a move to cover any of these weaknesses here.
Yeah, it's just so difficult with the Pokemon that Thomas has on the field right now to really get substantial damage into a Fire type in general, but especially a Fire type with the offensive prowess of Calyrex Ice Rider.
There goes the fake out. That is the call here. Not going to Terra, so we're not going to take nearly as much damage as we did before. But now what move are we following this up with? Plays up into the Iron Hands to take it out. Okay, not a bad decision here. Attacking around the Calyrex could be a valid strategy in this game.
Yeah, it's really all you can do. Thomas, a very good heads-up call. Jake, we would say, got turn 1 pretty correct. Thomas right there just got turn 2 falling. At the very least, the Calyrex would just try to attack. There was going to be no fake out from the opposing Iron Hands. And picking up a KO pretty freely. You just still have to manage through a few extra turns of Trick Room. And now, you've got a Miraidon that is going to likely move before the Zacian as well. Just threatening KOs at every angle. And once again, no moves that are even neutral into this Miraidon. Yeah, I guess you have the U-turn from Rillaboom outside of the Zacian's play route. It's just so difficult to get damage on the board against these two. Let's go to Thomas's credit. Jake down to his final two Pokemon already. Going to spend Neutralization, become a pure water type with the Rillaboom. Should keep it safe against Manipulation Lances on this coming turn. The Zacian will protect. I'm just really curious on how much damage this Rillaboom is going to be able to get off on this turn.
I also find it interesting to go for your Water Turret in the face of an electric Pokemon here.
Yeah, you you'd have to imagine it's potentially a U-turn, as we see right here, to get off the field. You really just want the water fractalization to keep yourself safe from the Glacial Lance. Then you turn out into, I think a Focus would be a very good bring-in here.
Oh,
It's going to be the
Grimstall's
Grimstall,
back.
though.
We do have Sucker Punch support here, but I don't know if it's going to be doing enough to this Calyrex to really threaten it. This is a supportive Pokemon here. Well, I think having Sleep would have been really nice to have right now.
Yeah, it's the sleep option and it's the ability to redirect this
Right.
Miraidon. You know, the single target attacks from the Miraidon that are just going to be so powerful into something like the Zacian. Of course, now with the Grimstar, the big benefit that you have is your Spirit Break. You know, the screens may end up taking too long to really get a lot of value out of them in the rest of this game, just with how fast those first couple of turns moved. But to threaten a Spirit Break into the opposing Miraidon, I don't believe it'll be enough to pick up the one-hit KO, but you should do plenty of damage, as it will be the light screen on this turn. No protects, no switches coming out from Thomas's side. So high horsepower, not weakened by Reflect, going to do plenty of damage, and Electro Drift pumping it up is going to knock out the Zacian and bring Thomas down, matching with his final two Pokemon as well.
Yes, and of course that last Pokemon in the back is a terrestrialized water. Rillaboom, I forgot his name. Oh my god. I was like, hold on, what is his name?
Well, hey, he's not a Pokemon champion, so why would you need to know his name?
But yeah.
But he is very much still around in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. You're one of the premier fake-out, just utility Pokemon in the game throughout the 4 years that we've been playing this version of Pokemon VGC. Once again, you just really don't have strong damage. You know, the Miraidon, because it is not holding the Choice Specs or the Choice Scarf, is able to protect on this turn, stall out the Trick Room that Jake set up for himself, and then just start clicking your Electro Drifts against two Pokemon on the other side that cannot protect.
And even outside of the Trick Room, there's one Pokemon that we're really not too worried about because Grimstall's just not pushing up enough damage. And honestly, neither is this Rillaboom. I don't see them being able to take on this powerful duo here.
Yeah, I am curious, you know, with the Miraidon, you no longer have the Electric Terrain boost, and the Rillaboom has Light Screen plus the Assault Vest. Do we think there's a world where Electro Drift does not KO this Rillaboom?
I would put money. There's so much damage already on Rillaboom that I don't
Yeah.
think that's going to be possible. It's going to be knockout here.
I think it would still knock it out, but I think, you know, if it were a very, you know, say weak Miraidon, you know, a version of Miraidon that does not have a ton of investment in its special attack, versus a Rillaboom that's super invested in
Here we
special
go.
defense.
Yeah,
But no.
there it is. Is it a crit? Nope, that's just regular damage. Nope.
Once again, showing just how strong Miraidon is. There's a reason we've seen it in every single
and time
round
again.
that we have broadcast here today. You know, as Reg I kind of winds down to its conclusion, you just see that certain Pokemon are just that good to be used all the time, as Miraidon is still lucky enough to survive that Spirit Break, and Glacial Lance single target doing worlds of damage into this Grimmsnarl. It's really just a matter of formalities at this point. You know, Grimmsnarl's not going to be able to knock out both of these Pokemon on Jake's side. That'll do it. Well, okay. Let's let those animations play out. But once we see this Glacial Lance come through,
And that'll be GG. There it is.
That's
Clean
gonna
game
be
from
it.
Dick Mueller. Clean game. Very well positioned.
Exactly, and really a similar game plan played out in both Game 1 and Game 2.
Absolutely.
Just getting rid of the Kyogre, getting rid of your opponent's piece that threatens your big
Yep.
defensive wall, and then you can just become a fire type, and you know, especially with the Pokemon that Thomas brought, just not really all that much you can do to a fire type Calyrex Ice Rider once your Kyogre has left the field.
Yeah, it really felt like a lot of the power was coming from Zacian in terms of damage, but once you got through that, or once you denied it with that one defensive Terra, and that final Gambit, such a nice switch up here, not prepared for that, taking the knockout on Kyogre. Tough position to be in.
Yeah, and it's just, once again, that prioritization, you know.
Yep.
It can be tough to choose which of your opponent's Pokemon you should click Final Gambit into, but you know, just
worked
on
out.
Game 1, we see in Game 2, as long as you can make sure that that targeting is correct, you You just accelerate the pace of the game. So
Literally.
And with that, with a 3-0 record, Jake Muller, I think, let's say unofficially, punches his ticket into Top Cut Hero of our Cup today. We will likely be seeing him a little bit later on in today's broadcast. But before then, we still have one more round of Swiss before Top Cut. So don't go anywhere. We'll see you right on the other side.